So we're very happy today to have Chantell from Consumer Friend with us. We enjoy working with Consumer Friend, and all debt counselors know it very well. And we have the opportunity to speak to you today, Chantell. We want to just get some feedback from you about some of the challenges that you find happening at the moment, just in the industry, and particularly maybe in your dealings with debt counselors on a regular basis, how things are going. What are the things that you find challenging? And maybe you've got some advice for us on how we can address that. Anyway, thank you. Welcome, Chantell.
Pleasure, Zach. Thanks for having me. Well, I would say the challenges that we experience at Consumer Friend, one of them, I would say, is terminations. So it's essential that we recognize that there are two distinct termination scenarios as outlined in the NCA. So terminations can occur either under Section 8610 or 88.3 of the NCA. Just a little bit about that. So terminations under Section 8610, this occurs before the debt review application is scheduled for court hearing. Now, as a credit provider, we reserve the right to terminate a credit agreement under the following conditions, right? So one of them would be non-payment. So this is when absolutely no payments are received for more than 60 business days or more. The other scenario is when there is short payments. When short payments are being received, and this also puts the account at risk of termination. And what I mean by short payments is in instances where there is no mutually and agreed upon consent in place. The payments that has to be done, it has to be in line with the COB contractual obligation. So what we found that there is a misconception that any payment, regardless of the amount, as long as the payment is done on the account, will prevent an account from being terminated. That's actually not accurate. Short payments without a consent immediately puts that account at risk of termination. So if we haven't agreed to a proposal concession for reduced installment, the consumer is actually liable to pay the contractual installment. So this is what we've experienced is happening the most. In most cases, the contractual installment is not being paid, and then the account is actually terminated. So it's important that the DC always checks the COB, make sure that the installment is in line with the contractual obligation to ensure that the account remains under debt review. When there's a consent in place, on the other hand, that's a different scenario. So when there's a consent in place, we encourage DCs then to ensure that payments are aligned with the agreed upon installments as indicated on the repayment cascade or the breakdown. So the cascade will indicate how payment needs to be done from start to finish, and this is how payment needs to be done to avoid the account from termination. So those are the two scenarios, is non-payment and short payment. But I think the focus should be on short payment because I think this is something that is missed within the industry. And a lot of times consumers do make reduced installments that is not in line with the contractual obligation.
So, Chantell, are we talking about like a 10 cents difference here? Is that what we're talking about? Is it something small like that, or are we talking about something more significant?
More significant, obviously. So, yeah, not for 10 cents, but we do encourage DCs to just make sure that it is in line with what has been predicted on the payment cascade, just to ensure, because this is what the system will look out for. It's looking out for the payment that the DC has promised in terms of their payment cascade to us.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the first thing that you're very conscious of at the moment. What other things have come up that maybe you're keeping an eye on personally?
So that's terminations in terms of Section 8610. And then we also get the terminations in terms of Section 88.3. So this type of termination occurs after the debt rearrangement order has been granted by the court. So in this case, again, and I cannot stress this enough, because the order and the rearrangement has already been confirmed, it outlines how payment needs to be conducted from the date that the order is actually granted. So we also just encourage DCs to stick to that arrangement, because remember, the order is granted now. We are holding you to that arrangement that has been granted, and payment needs to be in line with that. But yeah, those are the two scenarios, your terminations under 8610 and terminations under 88.3. If I can give some suggestions to DCs out there, is what they can do is, number one, they can monitor the Consumer Friend balance files. So every month, Consumer Friend sends DCs bulk balance files from DRX, which actually gives them an idea of what the balances is on a monthly basis for all their consumers. So these are these bulk balances that we send. What DCs can do, look at those bulk balances, compare the data with what you have on your side. Compare the balances. Check our balances compared to the balances on the PDA system, perhaps. See if we're in line. Just to make sure that perhaps on the DC side, the account is nearing its end and it's falling off the payment plan. But on our side, there could be still a huge balance. So it's important to just compare the two, to make sure that we are aligned, to avoid unnecessary terminations or the account falling off the payment plan. That's one. Another suggestion, I would say DCs can just regularly access DRX, check DRX, view the balances on a constant basis, make sure just to see where the balances are at. And if I can say lastly, on the termination front, DCs needs to act fast. Normally, before we terminate, and in terms of the NCA, we do have that 10-day notice period where we are sending the DC the notice to let them know that these accounts are about to be terminated. So I would say the DCs need to use that 10-day notice period prior to the account being terminated to communicate with us. Let us know what the issues are, why payments wasn't done. Perhaps it was a reference issue, perhaps payments was done with an incorrect reference, or whatever the reason may be. Please communicate with us, but do it within that 10-day notice period, and that so that we can try and sort it out before it is actually terminated. In cases where there has already been a termination done, termination is done, we've sent you the termination letter, still reach out to us, but do it promptly. Discuss possible payment discrepancies. We'll see where we can assist you, and possible reinstatement options. So we do have those. We do make reinstatement options available. So communicate with us shortly after the account was terminated. Don't wait 2 or 3 years down the line, or like 4 years later, because it's very difficult. So remember, Consumer Friend only manages active debt review accounts. Once the account is terminated, it leaves the Consumer Friend space. It's no longer managed by us, and it ultimately reverts back to the credit provider, who then will hand it over to whoever they wish. So for us to get the file back after 3 years, it's very difficult. And it's also a lot of admin to actually get it back after such a long time. So we do encourage DCs, if you've received the termination, if your consumer has received the termination, reach out to us at least within the first 30 days of the account being terminated. It does help, because the sooner we can address all the discrepancies, the sooner we can get the issue resolved or get the account back with us.
And of course, I suppose if you can avoid that situation where there is a termination entirely, so you're available and open to making adjustments in line with 17.3s that you get. You're prepared to consult and talk about when difficulties are coming up, especially in advance.
Yeah. Correct. Okay.
So between that and then promptly responding during that 10-day window, I think we've got a lot of opportunities to address it. Okay, so terminations, I think we get a clear understanding on where you stand at the moment. Tell us a little bit about proposals.
So that's the other area that we also experience some challenges. In some cases, I would say when we receive a proposal, but there's no payment cascade with that proposal, it makes it very difficult for the team to actually assess the proposal. So we do need a complete payment proposal, which includes the actual payment proposal. It includes the income and expenditure information and also the payment breakdown or the cascade. So that will allow the team to properly assess the proposal in order to give a consent. So it's important, and these are the challenges that we also experience, is when we only get one document, but the rest of the documents are not included. So it should be three. It should be the actual payment proposal, which outlines all the credit providers. It should be the payment breakdown, which outlines how the payment prediction and how the payment will be conducted, and also the income and expenditure. So that's the one issue. Another issue that we experience in some cases when we're getting a proposal, the account number or the reference on the actual proposal is incorrect. So this does, I know it seems silly, but it becomes a huge problem later down the line, because when we are sending that COB at inception, the system is looking for the reference number that we have given you in terms of an account. So that's the same reference number that has to be listed on the proposal as well. Anything else, the system does not recognize. So if DCs can please just make sure that the reference number on the proposal is actually the same reference number that we have issued you on the COB. That will also make it easier for the team to work those proposals. It also makes it easier when it comes to payments, because when you are directing payments to an account where the reference number is incorrect, it does make it difficult for the team to track those payments. And ultimately, we have to return payments that's where there's no valid reference number. So the reference number is actually very, very important. It has to be accurate. That's two scenarios. And another challenge that we experience under proposals is when the installments that's being offered for a payment breakdown it's not sufficient, or it doesn't cover the actual debt. So if the debt is 10,000, you as the debt counselor can't offer us 5,000. It has to actually cover the debt outstanding in order for the proposal to solve. So that's another scenario. I'd say the last one is when there are missing accounts from a proposal, or credit agreements that's not listed on the actual proposal. If we have sent you a COB or we sent you 5 COBs, you need to make sure that all 5 of those COBs are listed on, not COBs, all those 5 accounts are actually listed on your proposal. And that includes other credit agreements that forms part of the consumer's debt review portfolio. So all the credit agreements has to be included in the payment proposal. If for some reason a credit agreement is not listed on the proposal, give us the reasons. Tell us what the reasons are when you are submitting the proposal. Let us know in the rest of the proposal under the income and expenditure, is it an account that has possibly legal action has commenced, or there was a summons served and it would not be part of debt review? Then we understand, because then we have an idea as to why it's not in the actual payment plan, but provision is made for it in the expense. So yeah, so I think communication is important. So we encourage TCs, even when you're sending your proposals, communicate with us. First time around, when you're sending the proposal, at that first point when you're sending it, to avoid the back and forth, give us as much information as possible to avoid any miscommunication and discrepancies, so that we can give you the consent that you want on your proposal. So yeah, that's yeah.
Yeah, we definitely want those consents. So
you do.
Some good advice.
And we want to give them, yes.
And some good advice. And I think it's just a case of communicate, like let us communicate. So, all right, if you're looking for that, That's nice and clear for us now. One of the things that we love about dealing with yourselves is access to the portal, DREX, and all the functionality. Do you have any tips or advice when it comes to us in dealing with the system, or maybe things that you've picked up that have been a bit problematic?
I won't say there's anything problematic. What I would say is I would encourage the DCs that are not making use of DREX. Please get registered. Contact us. It's easy. Once you are registered on DREX, you actually have immediate access. You can have access to DREX on the same day that you've reached out to us. That's how easy it is. You just need to give us information, the information that is required for us to register you, and we can get you sorted out. So for the DCs that are not registered, we please do encourage you to please do get registered. Also encourage your consumers to get registered because it just makes it easier for you as the debt counselor when the consumer actually has access to DREX themselves. They can go and view their balances at their own time without worrying the debt counselor to assist them. So I think the benefits of DREX, and I think I've mentioned this many times before, it's very convenient, and a lot of debt counselors they're always happy to use DREX, the ones that are using it, because they can easily obtain balances. They can download statements whenever they want, even important debt review documents for that specific consumer. It is stored in DREX. They don't have to save these documents. The DREX does it for you. So all they have to do is just go on to DREX, whatever it is that they wish to view in terms of a specific profile, it's there. Also, the DCs that's already registered on DREX, they actually don't have to call us every other day for balances, for statements, for documents. They can just go on the system and get it for themselves. So for the ones that are not registered, it will eliminate all that back and forth, contacting us, sending emails, sending queries, or calling us for the information, where you can just access it anytime, and you can access it from anywhere. So it doesn't matter where you are, you can access it anytime and anywhere. So this is how easy DREX is, and this is why we encourage the DCs that are not yet using DREX, please get registered. Let me know, contact me, get a hold of me, get a hold of our DREX support team, and they will hook you up immediately.
Also, just say it's a nice way to build consumer confidence in the process because you're able to allow the consumer to gain access and they can see the progress that's been made. They can see the documents.
Correct.
So it is a good way to also convince people, hey, your debt review is working. Look what's happening. So yeah, it's a great system. If you're not on it, I can echo that. Get on the system. Chantell, thank you very much. We really appreciate it. And we enjoy working with you, of course, and of course with Consumer Friend. And we look forward to finding out a little bit more about the Technology Adoption Award in a little while. So congratulations to all the people in the top 10. And we look forward to hearing the results in just a few minutes, really. So thank you.